power, and the image of the country kept changing around it. To understand this properly, we have to go back far beyond modern politics, beyond the headlines, beyond the 20th century, and all the way into the deep roots of the ancient Iranian plateau, where mountains, deserts, and trade routes shaped a land that became one of the most important centers of human civilization. Long before the modern state existed, this region was home to Medes, Persians, and other Indo-Iranian peoples whose languages and cultures were part of a vast family that stretched across the ancient world. These were not random tribes moving without purpose, they were societies slowly building identity, order, belief systems, and political power in a region that connected the Middle East, Central Asia, and South Asia. The Persians came from a region called Pars, and that regional name eventually became the word the outside world used for the whole civilization, Persia. But at the beginning, Persia was not the center of power. It was one important region among others, and the real force in the area first belonged to the Medes, who built an organized and influential kingdom in the northwest. Then came the man who changed everything, Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was not just another ancient conqueror marching with an army, he was a ruler who understood that power is not only about destroying enemies, it is about holding together different peoples without breaking them apart. He defeated the Medes, united the region, and created the Achaemenid Empire, one of the greatest empires the ancient world had ever seen. Under Cyrus and later kings like Darius I, Persia expanded at extraordinary speed, stretching from the Indus River to the shores of the Mediterranean, from Egypt to Central Asia. This was not just a big empire on a map, it was one of history's first true superpowers, built on roads, administration, taxation, communication, and a surprisingly sophisticated respect for local cultures. Unlike many ancient rulers who tried to erase the identities of the people they conquered, Cyrus understood that loyalty could be stronger than fear if people were allowed to keep their temples, their gods, and many of their traditions. That is why he was remembered not only as a conqueror but also as a liberator by some of the people under his rule. The Achaemenid Empire became a model of governance that still fascinates historians because it combined strength with flexibility, and unity with diversity. Yet even the most powerful empire cannot escape the laws of history, and sooner or later every giant meets a challenger. For Persia, that challenger came from the west in the form of Alexander of Macedon. Alexander crossed into Persian territory with a young king's ambition and a conqueror's hunger for immortality. In a series of devastating battles, including Granicus, Issus, and finally Gaugamela, the Persian armies were crushed, and the Achaemenid Empire fell. Many people imagine this moment as the total end of Persian greatness, as if Alexander erased Persia from history in one dramatic stroke, but that is not what happened. In fact, this is where the story becomes more interesting. Alexander did not simply destroy Persia, he admired it, absorbed it, and in a strange way became part of its legacy. He wore Persian dress, married into Persian royalty, kept elements of the Persian administrative system, and tried to merge Greek and Persian rule into one larger imperial vision. That decision angered many of his Greek soldiers and generals, who had expected conquest, not cultural fusion. They believed they had come to defeat Persia, not to inherit it. But Alexander saw something bigger than battlefield victory. He understood that ruling a vast empire required symbols, legitimacy, and a shared future, not just military force. He dreamed of a world in which East and West were not separate, but blended into a single imperial order. His death at the age of only 32 left that dream unfinished, and his empire shattered among his generals, known as the Diadochi. But even though the empire broke apart, Persia did not vanish. It survived in memory, in local power structures, in language, and in the cultural heart of the region. Over time, new dynasties rose in the old Persian lands, and among the most important were the Parthians and later the Sassanids, who revived Persian traditions, and across the territory, Arabic became the language of religion and administration in many areas, and the old imperial order gave way to a new political and spiritual reality. Yet even here, the pattern is the same: Persia did not die. It adapted. Persian culture did not evaporate under Islamic rule, instead, it began to merge with the new world around it. Persian thinkers, poets, scholars, mathematicians, architects, and administrators continued to shape the broader Islamic civilization in extraordinary ways. The Persian language itself survived and even flourished in new forms, absorbing Arabic vocabulary while preserving its own structure and identity. Over the next centuries, the region passed through many dynasties and rulers, including Turkish, Mongol, and local Persian powers, but the core cultural identity remained. This is one of the most important things to understand. Persia was never simply one empire with one king and one religion. It was a long civilization constantly changing form while holding on to a deep inner continuity. Then came the Safavids, and with them one of the most decisive transformations in the history of the region. The Safavid dynasty did not just unify territory, it also made Twelver Shia Islam the official religion of the state. That decision was enormous. Until then, much of the Islamic world in the region had been Sunni, but the Safavids deliberately created a new religious identity that separated their state from its neighbors and gave it a unique character. This was not only a theological decision, it was a geopolitical one. It created a clear distinction between the Persian heartland and the rest of the Islamic world, especially the Ottoman Empire to the west. More importantly, it helped shape the identity that would eventually become modern Iran. Under the Safavids, Persian art, architecture, literature, and scholarship continued to flourish, but now within a distinctly Shia framework. The old Persian world and the Islamic world fused into something neither fully ancient nor fully new. And this fusion is exactly what makes the story so powerful, because the country that later became Iran was not simply replacing one identity with another, it was layering identities on top of each other across centuries. By the time the 20th century arrived, the outside world still used the name Persia, while many people inside the country increasingly used Iran, a word with much older roots connected to the land of the Aryans or nobles. Iran was not an invented modern label, it was an ancient self-name that had long existed alongside Persia. The difference was that Persia had become the name foreigners knew, while Iran was the name the people themselves increasingly recognized as their own. Then came the decisive moment in 1935 when Reza Shah Pahlavi asked foreign governments to officially use the name Iran instead of Persia. Why did he do it? The answer is complicated, but the short version is that he wanted to present the country as modern, independent, and sovereign, not as some exotic relic filtered through old Western fantasies about the Orient. For many in the West, Persia had become a romantic but distorted image associated with carpets, poetry, luxury, and ancient decadence. Reza Shah wanted something different, a name that reflected the nation's own internal identity and its modern political ambitions, but the decision was controversial, because to many people the word Persia carried centuries of glory. From Cyrus and Darius to literature, science, and empire. So when the name officially shifted, some saw progress, while others saw loss. That tension still matters today, because the two names carry two different emotional worlds. Persia evokes ancient grandeur, lost majesty, and a civilization remembered in poetry and legend. Iran evokes the modern state, the geopolitical reality, the revolution of 1979, the Islamic Republic, and the complex place the country occupies in today's world. After the 1979 revolution, the image of Iran changed dramatically on the global stage. The monarchy fell, Ayatollah Khomeini and the new revolutionary government took power, and the country entered a new political era defined by Shia ideology, resistance to the West, sanctions, and regional conflict. Around the world, Iran became associated with tension, power struggles, and nuclear anxieties, while Persia remained a cultural memory, a word that people used when they wanted to speak of the old beauty, the old literature, and the old imperial splendor. And that is where the real answer lies. Persia did not disappear. It was not erased in one day, nor replaced by one decree, nor buried under one revolution. It evolved. It changed kings, changed religions, changed borders, changed language, changed its image, and changed the way the world interpreted it. But at every stage, something continued underneath all those changes, a civilization with a long memory and a powerful sense of continuity. That is why the question, how did Persia become Iran, is not really about a country losing its identity. It is about a civilization surviving transformation after transformation until its ancient past and modern present finally met under one official name. Persia became Iran not because it ended, but because it adapted. And in that adaptation, perhaps, lies the true secret of its survival.